I never thought I'd find myself telling this kind of story, but life in Oakwood Heights has a way of surprising you. I've lived here nearly 5 years now, a place where every lawn looks freshly ironed, the fences match in color, and even the mailboxes line up like soldiers. It's the type of neighborhood that likes to do everything perfectly, the type that seems like it was pulled directly from the pages of a high-end magazine layout. To be honest, I did not find the order objectionable. I knew what I was getting myself into when I purchased this home. What I did not anticipate, what nobody anticipates, is Barbara Thompson. Barbara, or Barb as most of the neighbors whisper, is the self-appointed monarch of our homeowners association. She's been running it like a private kingdom for 3 straight years. And trust me, nobody dares challenge her rule. Mid-50s, always dressed like she's headed to high tea with royalty, and that tight blonde bun that could probably deflect bullets. Her constant accessory? Her trusty clipboard, her sword, which she keeps with her at all times, patrolling the sidewalks, seeking out lawbreakers like a suburban bounty hunter. I had managed to keep under her radar for the longest time. But that binge came to an end the day I hurt my back. One misstep in the kitchen, water on tile, and I landed on my bum. The collapse left me with a herniated disc and a road to recovery stretching out before me. Surgery ensued, and the weeks that followed were sluggish, agonizing, and bluntly humbling. My physician set up a visiting nurse to visit me 3 times a week to tend to wound care and walk me through physical therapy. It was all chugging along just fine, until that particular Tuesday afternoon. My nurse, Sarah, was one of the nicest people you ever met. Gentle, professional, and truly caring. She'd drive up to my front driveway, visit for an hour, and leave. Easy enough, or so I believed. That afternoon, we were in the middle of a session when my doorbell began ringing like an alarm. Not once, not twice, repeatedly, as if someone was set on wearing it out. I limped to the door, each step a stabbing reminder of the injury I was struggling to heal from. And she was there. Barbara stood on my porch, her uniform intact, floral shirt, pearls, that ubiquitous clipboard, and a glare so sharp it could cut glass. "Excuse me," she started, voice dripping with feigned politeness. "There's a vehicle in your driveway that doesn't belong." I blinked, perplexed. "Her nurse's car," I explained, getting winded. "She's assisting me in recovery from back surgery." Barbara raised an eyebrow, as if I'd just committed a federal offense. HOA Rule 7. 4. 2 states that no commercial trucks can park in residential driveways during the daylight hours. I attempted to remain cool-headed. Barbara is not commercial, is her own car. She's a medical care giver giving home health care. Her lips curled into that characteristic smug smile. It has a company name on the door. That qualifies it as commercial. She must relocate it right away, or you'll be penalized $100 a day. Before I could even create a response, Sarah materialized behind me, sensing the tension. "Is everything all right?" she inquired gently. Barbara turned on her like a hawk spotting prey. "You need to move your vehicle right now. You're violating HOA policy." Sarah, ever the professional, kept her tone even. "I'm in the middle of providing medical care to my patient. I'll finish in about 30 minutes, and then I'll be gone." Barbara's face grew a deep red, a color I'd come to identify with her combat mode. "I don't care what you're doing. Rules are rules. Get it moving now, or I'm calling tow truck." "Barbara, please," I replied, attempting to remain courteous as the pain spiked in. "My back. Be reasonable. Sarah is assisting me in recovery. She'll be leaving in a few hours." "Reasonable?" she near screamed. "I'm being rational. The rules are for everybody. No exceptions." I reminded her there were actually exceptions. I'd read the HOA bylaws prior to Sarah ever beginning visiting. There was a provision for healthcare professionals parking during active in-home visits. But Barbara was not one for reason. She was already storming off, phone in hand. Sarah sighed. "Should I relocate my vehicle? I don't wish to give you more trouble." "Not on your life," I said sternly. "You have every right to be here. Let's just get your work done." 15 minutes passed before the rumble of a tow truck reversing down my driveway shocked me for all I was worth. Barbara had gone and done it. She had called for a tow. I limped outside as quickly as I could, the pain shooting up through my spine, and saw a large tow truck driver already locking up Sarah's automobile. Barbara stood there, crossed arms, a pleased smile glued to her face. "Stop!" I yelled, my voice cutting with anger as well as pain. "You can't tow that automobile. It's a medical professional's car who is currently giving in-home care." The driver glanced between us, obviously ill at ease. "Lady here told me it's an unauthorized business vehicle," he grumbled. "It's my nurse's car," I replied, keeping my tone even. "She's in there now, assisting me in recovery from surgery. Review the HOA bylaws, Section 12. 3. Healthcare professionals furnishing active in-home care are exempted from parking limitations." Barbara laughed, a brief, derisive sound. "That's absurd. There is no such exemption." I'd expected that answer. I'd actually printed out that part of the bylaws when I'd had my surgery, in case this day ever arrived. I told the driver to wait, limped back in, retrieved the paperwork, and presented it to him. He read it for a couple of seconds, then nodded. "Yeah, it says here, medical professionals are exempt while rendering care." He released the car. "Sorry for the inconvenience, man." Barbara's eyes blazed as she snatched the paper, reading it as if she could scorch holes in the paper. "This has to be out of date," she barked. "It was approved way before you were HOA president, Barbara," I said with a calm tone. "It's been valid for years." The tow truck driver seemed not to want any part of the melodrama. "Look, I can't tow a legally parked car. Call us when something comes up," he told me before peeling out. I figured that would be the end of it. I really did. But Barbara wasn't one to give up easily. As the truck drove off down the road, she spun around back toward me, her face contorted in rage. "This isn't over," she spat, before storming off like a henchman, taking an exit stage left. Back at the house, Sarah attempted to settle down to work, but I could see the incident had unsettled her. I smiled thinly. "Don't mind her," I said. "She's all bark and no bite." If only I'd realized how mistaken I was. 2 days afterward, when Sarah showed up for my second session of therapy, Barbara was already present, lawn chair planted squarely across from my house, clipboard held on her lap like a club. She wasn't even trying to disguise her stalking. When Sarah's car turned in the driveway, Barbara stood up, striding across the street like a caffeine-high traffic warden. I opened the door before she could ring the bell, resolved to put an end to this nonsense before it started. "Barbara," I said firmly, "we've discussed this already. Sarah is permitted to park here when she's delivering medical care." Barbara didn't even acknowledge me, her gaze fixed on Sarah. "I read the bylaws more thoroughly," she said, her tone full of victory. "While medical employees are exempt from commercial vehicle regulations, they are not exempt from the 45-minute visitor parking time, your hour-long sessions. That's a violation." I looked at her shocked. "Barbara, are you really fighting about 15 minutes? This is medical care, not a social call." She simply smiled, that same cold, triumphant smile that indicated to me she'd only just begun her crusade. "Rules are rules," she repeated, savoring each word like her personal anthem. 15 minutes over is still a violation. Sarah, bless her heart, didn't flinch. "Mrs. Thompson," she said evenly, "I understand your commitment to the rules, but my patient's recovery depends on completing the full therapy session. Cutting it short could delay healing." Barbara's expression didn't soften. If anything, it hardened. "Not my problem," she replied coldly. "Either you're done in 45 minutes or the car is going to be towed." She brandished her phone as though it were a badge of authority. Tow company's speed dial. I could sense the fury seething in my chest, but Sarah placed a light hand on my arm. "Go on inside," she whispered. "Don't let her get your blood pressure up. It'll just hinder your recovery." She was correct. I swallowed my anger and went inside after her, though concentrating on therapy seemed out of the question. I could almost sense Barbara's gaze searing through the walls. 40 minutes elapsed, and sure enough, the doorbell sounded a second time. I opened the door to see Barbara standing on my porch, tapping at her watch with dramatic flair. 5 minutes remaining, she stated with smug contentment. That was all. My patience broke. "Barbara, this is harassment," I snapped. "You're obstructing medical care, which is against the law." For a second, her eyes went wide and then slid up at me. Don't threaten me, she spat. I'm just upholding rules we all signed on to. I'm not threatening you, I said, fighting to remain calm. I'm advising you. If you continue to interfere with medical care, that's obstruction. And yes, it is a crime. Barbara scoffed, turned on her heel, and strutted back across the street, but she didn't leave. Instead, she settled back in her lawn chair, clipboard in hand, smirking like she'd just scored a victory. When Sarah finished the full 1-hour session, exactly as required, Barbara reappeared at my door, already dialing. That's it, she announced triumphantly. Tow truck's on its way. You're getting fined. Before I had time to answer, Sarah stepped between us, cool but authoritative. Mrs. Thompson, she said, I must tell you that knowingly interfering with ordered medical treatment can have legal consequences of a serious nature. This encounter, the last one, have been recorded in my patient's official medical record. For the first time, Barbara faltered. Her mask cracked for an instant. Then she sneered. Scare me with something else, because I know my rights as HOA president. What she didn't realize was that Sarah had been keeping records. With my approval, she'd photographed Barbara's stakeouts, taped each confrontation, and even notified her legal department after the first confrontation. So when the tow truck showed up, Sarah approached the driver right up to the vehicle, professional and composed. She explained the situation and handed over official documents from her healthcare company, papers that stated interfering with in-home medical care could be considered a criminal offense under state law. The driver glanced at the paperwork, then back at Barbara. Yeah, no thanks, he muttered. I'm not getting involved in this. He climbed into his truck and drove away. Barbara's jaw dropped. This is ridiculous, she bellowed. You can't just do what you want just because you feel special. I finally vented my anger. In fact, Barbara, it's referred to as medical necessity. It takes precedence over your beloved HOA rules. Perhaps consult a lawyer before continuing to dig yourself into this hole. Fine, she snapped and stormed off. If that's how you want to do it, I will. For a few blissful days, all was quiet. I began to think perhaps she'd finally caught on that she was treading dangerous legal terrain. But peace never endures long when someone such as Barbara takes a drubbing. Monday morning confirmed it. Barbara came back, this time with an entourage. 2 other HOA board members followed her in tow like reluctant troops. The moment Sarah pulled into the drive, Barbara strode up the driveway, standing straight in front of the car. You're trespassing on HOA property, she growled. I got out onto the porch. Barbara, this is my private driveway. She didn't acknowledge me. You need to leave right now, she told Sarah. Sarah attempted to step around her, speaking in a calm but authoritative tone. Ma'am, I'm here to deliver medical care. Please move. And that's when Barbara went over the edge. She pushed Sarah. Hard. Hands on her shoulders. You're not welcome here during business hours, she snarled. Get out. I watched it all from the window, and my stomach fell. I grabbed my phone, picked up the 911. Hello, I said to the dispatcher, trying to keep my voice level. I need to report an assault. The HOA president just physically shoved my healthcare nurse and is blocking her from coming into my house to administer medical care. The dispatcher was soothing. Officers are en route, sir. Stay inside. Meanwhile, Sarah, being a professional as always, had already begun recording the entire incident on her phone. 2 nearby board members turned aghast. They also stepped back hastily, not wishing to be involved in what was happening. Barbara, I bellowed from the door. The police are coming. You just assaulted a healthcare provider and obstructed medical treatment. Get off my property immediately. Her bravado wavered. Police, she stuttered, her face going pale. That's ridiculous. You can't call the police for HOA regulations. I didn't, I replied coldly. I called because you assaulted someone. HOA bylaws do not grant you the authority to touch anyone. Barbara looked to her so-called friends for assistance, but they were already speed-walking back home, abandoning her to take her lumps alone. I was just trying to do my job, she claimed weakly. When the officers soon arrived, Sarah and I made our statements. Sarah showed them her video evidence. As the footage played, the officers' expressions darkened. Ma'am, one officer said, his tone clipped but calm, interfering with medical care is a serious offense, and physical assault is a crime. Barbara's voice trembled. But I'm the HOA president, she insisted, as if that title carried immunity. The officer didn't blink. That may be true, ma'am, but it doesn't entitle you to touch anyone or stand in the way of a nurse doing her job. Then came the moment I won't ever forget. The police officer told Barbara she was being arrested for simple assault and interference with medical treatment, both of which are serious offenses in our state. As he recited her rights and snapped the handcuffs on her wrists, reality finally caught up with her. The lady who had paraded across our neighborhood like a self-proclaimed queen was now being guided towards a police cruiser. "This is outrageous," she bellowed. "Do you know how much I've done for this community?" I was enforcing the rules, but the law wasn't interested in her clipboard. Barbara Thompson was accused of misdemeanor simple assault, which could bring up to 1 year in prison, and interfering with medical care, a classy felony that could bring up to 6 years behind bars and $3,000 in fines. She posted bail, but the judge didn't hesitate to order a restraining order, prohibiting her from entering within 50 feet of me or Sarah. 1 week later, the HOA called an emergency meeting. Barbara arrived looking like a ghost of her former self, hair limp, blouse rumpled, arrogance overcome with fear. The board voted unanimously to strip her of her presidency for conduct unbecoming a community representative. "You can't do this to me," she breathed, her voice shaking. "This is my community. I created it. I guarded it. But with the gavel's fall, it was done. Barbzilla's reign was over, for good." Neighbor Wars HQ, real stories, real battles, real neighbors.